everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Bob Stewart. Super excited to have you guys here today. Woo, there he is. Ken's got his screen all loaded up for us. So I've got my friend Ken Granger here. He is the CEO and founder of BRANDco. And Ken has been doing this for a long time. He's been helping real estate agents kind of present themselves to the world for more than 2 decades. And I'm super excited to have him here. Before I bring Ken on and introduce him, and it's a good thing we had my picture really small, because look at this good looking face here. We don't want to put my big old face next to that thing. Ken, there it is. My small little face all grayed out, and that's good. Listen, before I bring Ken on and introduce him, I want to make sure as we're going through here, if you guys have a question for Ken, I'll be here the whole time. And I'll pop in and ask your question at any point. So find right now, there's a little GoToWebinar control panel that all of you guys have. And I want you to find that little area where you can go in there and ask a question of Ken. And what I'd like you to do is check in with that in that area there and let us know just where are you guys at today? Where are you joining us from around this beautiful country of ours? Ken and I, we've got the whole country covered. Like I'm up here in the Seattle area, Ken's down in Orlando. So you guys are somewhere in between he and I would almost guarantee it. So Luann's down in Prescott, and Salvador's in Wisconsin, and Memphis, and Colorado Springs, and Austin, Michigan, awesome. All right, Olympia, Texas. Hi, Deborah. All right, so lots of our friends joining us here from all over the country, Ken. So guys, as we get Lake Stevens, right? Literally next door to me, Kelly, fantastic. All right, so as we go through here and you guys have a question, you fire it into that same area, and I will make sure that Ken answers as many of your questions as we can, and we'll definitely have some time at the end to kind of wrap up and get any unanswered questions covered. Hi, Kevin. All right, Ken Granger, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. How about yourself?
I'm good. So you've been doing this for north of 20 years, helping real estate agents kind of put their brand together, and you do this through your company, BRANDco. I want to, as we kind of get in here, and I'm going to hand the presentation over to you, but maybe as we get started here, you could kind of define for us what you even think a brand means to a business or to a real estate agent. Because in my head, and definitely not the expert, right, but I just think of a brand being like kind of that visual representation of my business, out in the physical world. But I feel like I'm probably shorting what a brand actually is. So Ken, give me, what is your kind of definition of what a brand is?
I think you hit the nail on the head there from what everyone's perspective of the brand is. A lot of times when they think about branding, the first thing that they think of is their logo. And that's a huge component of what your brand is, that visual representation that you mentioned, kind of the identity. And we can think of big brands like McDonald's or Nike, and those representations of them and their logos can instantly pop into your mind. Target, for example. But branding is so much bigger than just that. It's more than just the logo and the visual representation. It's how people feel and interact with your brand. It's everything from your customer service and how you answer the phone and how you speak with people. It's how quickly you respond to emails and what your communication style is like and your personality that shines through that. And, I know we're probably talking to some folks that are, independent and solo real estate agents. So we've got some people on a team, and, everybody in that team or in that company needs to be representing the brand the same way and talking in the brand voice. So it's a lot more than just the identity. It's all the things that you do when you interact with your customers and how they feel about you and your company, your brand, after those interactions. And if they were to be talking about you to one of their friends, it's all the things that they would say. So it's basically what you leave behind in their mind. Some of that's visual, some of that is the service level that you provide. A lot of it is how they feel when they're done with their interaction with you. So it's a great question, and a lot of agents are kind of puzzled when they start talking about branding, which is why we bring these branding mistakes out, so we can have some good conversation about that and get people thinking about all those components of their brand.
Okay, cool. So take me away then. Let's I think you've got a couple, oh, here we go. 9 branding mistakes that cost more money. So let's dive in and unpack this a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to be talking about the 9 branding mistakes. We actually have a presentation that can go up to 50 branding mistakes. So we're covering like the top 9 that I think if we put them into smaller pieces, like everybody can walk away from this webinar today and evaluate themselves, their business, and their brand on these 9 mistakes and kind of check the boxes. Like if they're making these, no problem, there's some opportunity to fix them. Or, you know, if they've got these 9 checked, ask me for the other 41 and we'll have a little bit more of that conversation. But today we're going to talk about 9 of those branding mistakes. And I think it's important, we kind of talked about what branding is a little bit ago there in the introduction, but I think it's kind of important to define what branding is. And branding is one of those words that's both a noun and a verb. And as a noun, it's a particular kind of something. So when we were talking about Nike, for example, a little bit earlier, it's a particular type of shoe, or McDonald's is a particular type of fast food entity, right? So we've got this kind of physical thing that your brand is, but it's also a verb. And to brand something is to mark indelibly. So when you think about branding, you know, it's those combined together, and what it really is the legacy. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. It's what you leave behind in your customers or your client's mind after their interactions. And it may be a personal or one-on-one interaction with that customer. For example, you know, you're at a listing presentation, or you meet them at the shopping supermarket and bump shopping carts, and they happen to notice that you're a real estate agent. But there's so much also that happens not face-to-face. It could be as simple as your voicemail message. When they call you and you're not available, what does your voicemail say? Is it just the, you know, you have reached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, please leave a message? Or is it somebody warm and friendly that greets them and says, you know, hey, I really, sorry, I missed your call. I would really like to help you with your real estate needs. Please leave me a message and I'll return calls just as quickly as possible and set those expectations. There are so many online or offline interactions with your brand that you may not even know about. If your voicemail greeting is just the, hey, you've reached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a lot of people that just hang up on you and never leave you a message, and that's a missed opportunity, and you have no idea who they are, and you left a bad legacy, a bad taste in their mouth with them. Could be on your website too, right? Your website could be not user-friendly, or have a bad experience, or not look very well designed, and you may not even be able to have communication with that person. So your brand extends far beyond just that visual representation of your logo and those personal face-to-face and one-on-one interactions. It's everything in your business and the legacy that you leave behind with that person after they interact with you. So branding is a vast, we looked at that maze before, it is a vast thing to be talking about, and breaking down these 9 things I think will help folks quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's one of the, you said like your website. I had an agent, it wasn't a month ago, I had an agent say to me, most of my business comes from referral. He said last year, you know, I did 42 deals and 38 of those were referrals. So I don't really think that, like, my website doesn't matter. And what I said to him was, listen, you did 38 referrals. How do you know that you weren't referred 50 people? And all, you know, and 38 of them just came to you and called you up, and the other 12 went out and Googled you and looked at your website and was like, I don't think I'm doing business with this guy. And he was like, I never thought about that way. So I mean, this extends into all these kind of cracks in your world that a lot of them you don't even realize it's happening, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And like you said, I've talked to agents in that exact same scenario. I'm a referral only business. I don't generate online leads, and that's perfectly fine. Like, that's a great business model and it works for a lot of people. But to your point, you got those 38 deals, you have no idea what was left on the table because they didn't feel like you had the experience, the knowledge, you worked in their market, you worked in their price point, you know, they didn't have anything that they can, you know, kind of relate to you in your digital footprint, which would make them know, like, and trust you to become that referral or that lead. So it's huge, even for a referral business, that your brand extends into everything that you do.
The other thing that just, like, kind of, and look, I've been in this industry, you know, almost as long as you have, 19, 20 years. I don't know that I've ever thought about this until just now, but it came because of the way you described what it is. It's a noun and it's a verb. And when you said it's a noun, go back to that slide for me for just a second. It's a noun, it's a thing, right? you're a real estate agent. It's a particular kind of something. You're just a real estate agent. And kind of by default, you get assigned the brand of a real estate agent and whatever that might mean to a consumer, right? Some consumers think, oh, real estate agent, they never return phone calls. Some of them think, oh, real estate agent, they're always trying to sell you something. Like there's already an attachment to like what we are to the public. And so we have to, I think the second slide, which is a verb to leave the mark indelibly, we have to actually like mark our brand so that it means something different than just what the consumer defaults to. So you almost have like this extra challenge in that there's already kind of something attached to the idea of being a real estate agent. You have to break away from that to leave your own brand, right? I don't know, that just kind of punched me in the face a little bit there. I'm like, God, you're not just dealing with the fact that you have to differentiate yourself. Like you actually are differentiating from like this consumer's understanding of what an agent is to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to ever compare real estate agents to other industries, but you think about, what is the instant reaction that you get when you think of a used car salesman, or you think of a doctor, or you think of those types of professions. You have this preconceived notion about what to expect in that experience. And when you have a different type of experience that you give your customer and you have a different brand, not only do you have to overcome that preconceived notion, but it also makes you completely different. And it may disarm that person if they're expecting a certain type of experience when they walk into the car showroom and they get something different, or when they walk into the doctor's office and they get something different. You have the opportunity as a real estate agent to do that too. And the unfortunate part, there's what I think NAR says like 1.4 million real estate agents out there. The unfortunate part is that most of them act and show up nearly the same. And the fortunate part about that is it doesn't take you much to differentiate yourself and stand out from that crowd. And I think this is good timing when we're looking at 2020, and probably most of you have already got your plans in action, but now's the time to check in and see if we can, extend that brand and your branding in order to be able to make sure that you hit those goals and provide a different customer experience than everybody else that's going to be talking to those same people who are looking to buy or sell a home.
Love it. Let's jump in. Let's knock out some errors, some mistakes.
Yeah, well, so with the exception of the business card slide, because I didn't want to have like people's real phone numbers and stuff out there, I'm using like real world experiences. And we've been doing this. We just had our 20th anniversary last June, so we're 21 years. So we've seen a lot of this, and I'm using real world examples. There's a chance, there's a good number of folks on this webinar today that either somebody watching today or that watches this on replay, we may have like encountered your brand in my slides here. And I just want to say that this is a safe zone. So if there happens to be a friend or an agent or colleague that you know in our examples here, this is a safe zone. We're using this as a learning experience. Please don't, point fingers at them and laugh at them and make them cry. I want to make sure that we're using all of this information here while it's like real data. I want to make sure that it's used in a safe way so that we all can learn. And there's no hard feelings from any of the topics that we come up here. Likewise, if we are talking about some scenarios that maybe some mistakes that you're actually making in your brand, don't take that, too hard. Like I said a little bit earlier, of the 1.4 million folks that are out there selling real estate, almost all of them have at least one of these mistakes in their branding. So I'm glad that you're here to learn this and you become aware of that. Hopefully you put some of this into action so that you can fix those mistakes, but don't take it too hard, I guess is my point. So we're gonna be talking about first is poor quality business cards. And, we work with agents as new as, their first order of business cards, or as experienced as agents that are, wanting metal and laser etched business cards that, range, anywhere from 2 cents a business card to $3 or $4 per business card. But the reality is, regardless of what your budget is for your cards, there are a lot of mistakes that you can make on them that just don't represent you or your brand or your legacy very well. I'm going to show you a few examples here. This one, while I think a lot of folks would see it comical and memorable, this one's kind of, how do I say this? Should I be politically correct or direct? What's the best way to approach this?
Be direct. I'm direct. Be direct.
This card sucks. There's so much going on there. It's, it's kitschy. It's, it just doesn't represent you as a professional. You're supposed to be, sending out the message that I'm going to represent you in one of the most important transactions of your life. And, we deal with that every day as real estate agents, but sometimes we don't think about, how important these things are to our potential clients. And if you're making a joke of it or a mockery of it, you're not sending the best message and building trust with that person. There's a lot going on this card, from, kind of the kitschy theme with, the $100 bill there. There's multiple different fonts. There's all these kinds of logos on there. And then we have we'll talk about photos a little bit later, but we have that typical real estate agent photo there that's just kind of got that, I call it like a high school yearbook photo there. And I think if you want people to take you seriously, you don't want to do something along those lines. There's lots of conversations about whether real estate agents should even have their photo on business cards. And I could argue either side of that case. A lot of agents that we work with are not putting photos on their cards because what other profession that you know of does? When we're talking about attorneys, doctors, those kind of professions that, people know as professionals, they don't usually put their photos there. So, if you are going to use a photo, I think it definitely should be a more professional photo. It shouldn't lean back towards high school. It should be something that, you'd be respectable and kind of business focused, not reminding us of high school. A lot of times when we're looking at business cards, we see agents that want to do it themselves. And this is an example of a marketing company, which I just love because it's like the worst font, worst business card example ever. And it's actually a marketing company. You want to make sure that if you are going to be doing your business cards yourselves, that you take into consideration the legibility of that card. And, obviously we've got this blown up full screen right now, but there's a lot going on here. And really the purpose of the card is for somebody to connect with you, right? And for the most part, that's going to be via phone, email, or website. Okay, so there is a lot going on with this. I mean, we read all of this garbage from, Jimco marketing, from concept to retail. It's hard to read all of this. We've got probably 4 or 5 different fonts going on there. You want to use some sort of hierarchy in your business card. If the most important thing for that person is to call you, well, maybe you should put your phone number at the top. Or if you want them to visit your website to get a CMA, maybe you should put the website towards the top. So when you're designing your cards or you're working with a company that's designing your cards, think about that. Like, what do I actually want people to do when I hand them my business card?
I think isn't there something, Ken, like this card right here looks like the guy is expecting that the way his business card is going to get him business, he's going to go stand in the middle of a room with 100 people and he's just going to throw his business card into the air. And then if somebody picked it up, they'd know everything these guys do, right? But that's not really like generally how you're like meeting somebody, you're giving them your business card, right? Like you're not just throwing it in the air. So like having all this crap on there to try to explain every single thing that you do doesn't really make a lot of sense.
It absolutely doesn't. And I love the visual of like making it rain with your business cards in a room full of a bunch of people. The reality is if you're handing someone a business card, you've already made some sort of personal connection. And this piece of material is to reinforce that connection. And you don't need to put, buy, sell, investment, blah, 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 blah. They probably already know that. And quite honestly, if they're a buyer, you really should be only talking to them about, buyers, value proposition, what you give to buyers. Sellers, the same thing, right? You don't need to be throwing all this other stuff out there. Luxury, when you're talking to a first-time home buyer, is not super exciting. First-time home buyer, when you're talking to a luxury seller, is not super exciting. So just throwing all this, vomit on the screen or vomit on your business card is not helpful to anyone. So I think that's a great point. And the next one drives me absolutely crazy. We've all seen the Vistaprint commercials out there. And I can't tell you, we attend several of the real estate events. We've got one coming up in a couple of weeks here, actually next week at Family Reunion, where there's 20-some thousand real estate agents. I promise you I'll get 100 business cards from Vistaprint that on the back of it that says, build your business at vistaprint.com. And they just don't think about the negativity and the message that sends that, I don't trust my business. I don't value my business enough to invest in it $100 or $200 for some quality business cards. I took the cheap way out. I spent 10 and I'm advertising for this other company. So if you're in that scenario and you've got free business cards, you've got the $10 business cards from Vistaprint, flip the card over. You shouldn't be advertising for anyone else but yourself. And what kind of message does this send? You hand that card out and people walk away. What do they think about you at that point? or trust you with the most important investment, but you can't spend, $100 on business cards. So think about that. And if you've got cards out there right now and you're thinking, maybe, maybe not, if you want to take a picture of it or scan your card, at the end, I'll shoot you my email, and I'm sure in the follow-up emails we'll have that. Send me a copy of your card. I'm happy to look at it and give you some advice. When we do this particular content live, we actually have some feedback loops here where we can look at each other's cards, but I'm happy to review your business cards and give you any suggestions that I may see so you can make sure that you're not making any of these mistakes.
Give me a couple of tips then. Like what would be a few things that I might be looking for or thinking about as I was looking at my own business card to like there would be good things that I should do?
Yeah, so first of all, you probably only want 1 or 2 fonts on the business card. So if you have multiple styles of fonts on there, that's going to be distracting to the person. You also want to make sure that there's some hierarchy, that the most important things in your business card have some weight to them, or they're at the top. So for example, just on this example here on the right-hand side there, we can see your current free business card design. They've got their phone number at the top. For most of us, the phone number is the most important thing. For most of us, the address is not really important because they're very rarely going to show up at your office. So you want to have some sort of hierarchy where the most important things are easy to read, are bold, are at the top. There's something that calls them out, and the least important things are smaller and towards the bottom. There's always like compliance issues that you have to work with. In different states have different rules about what has to be on the business card. So you always want to follow those, but make sure that there's some hierarchy so that the action or the activity that the people you give this card to is what you want, and they're not looking all over the place to try and get in contact with you.
Like Audrey says, they have 2 cards. They've got their toss cards, which I'm assuming they leave like when after they show a house or in your bowl at the conference, Ken, right? And then she said we've got our impression cards. She asked, is that a good idea? I think that's a good idea, right? Like you could probably get your Vistaprint free ones to toss into Ken's bowl, but
I could argue either side of that. I could argue that it's $10 and you want to get rid of those, but I can also say that a high quality business card is like 12 or 15 cents. So for you to carry around both of those, does that make sense? And if you run out of the high quality cards and you have to give a toss card to a customer, was it worth saving those few extra cents to find yourself in that situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why we brought the expert.
Well, and the other thing is, how do you know I'm not going to be a customer? There's an agent here in Orlando that I work with really closely, and when he goes to an open house, he doesn't leave one business card in the open house like most do. They toss a business card on the counter. He leaves like 2 or 3 business cards there, and not necessarily because he's shown that property a few times, but his card is so unique, and he's gone back to several homes and found his card gone. And I don't know if that was another agent that thought it was really cool or how that scenario happened, but the toss cards, you never know who's going to come into contact with that. Could be a potential recruit, to join your business. Could be somebody that says, hey, this guy's really good at marketing. I want to be in business with them. Like you never know what's going to happen to that business card. So I would encourage you to, spend a little bit of money, and if you have, toss cards, toss them quickly. You can throw them all in my bowl. And go with the more professional and ones that you would want to represent you in the world. You have no idea where that card goes next.
All right, there's a couple other questions here, but maybe if we have time at the end, there's some good ones here. I'll bring these back up when we get to a little bit later. Angela, you have a good question there.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's pop into mistake number 2, and that's slogans. You said I can just be as direct as possible. I hate real estate slogans. They're usually the worst. Okay, most of the time it's one of those things where you say, what should my slogan be? And through a committee of friends and family, you come up with something just honestly just kind of campy and just doesn't represent yourself very well. I believe that your slogan should be something that you are just super passionate about and something that just oozes from your pores. If you do not have a purpose like that, you don't need a slogan. It's a waste. And I'll show you some of these slogans that we've seen out here. Some of these are quite funny. This one here says providing exceptional service with outstanding results. It just doesn't mean a whole lot. Like that is what's expected of you as a real estate agent, is to get results and to give me good service. You're getting a good commission for that, and it's expected. So when you say something like that, you're not like reinforcing that you're an awesome person. You're kind of just saying like, yeah, that's what you expect from a real estate agent, and I'm going to give you, kind of what you expect. Right?
You're setting the par. This is par, right?
You're setting the bar with everybody else. It didn't help you out. This one's trying to be fun. The house sold name instead of the household name, just kind of lame. Like, what does it mean? Like, I don't necessarily want to get behind you because of this little saying here. So to me, this is just a waste of space. Your best investment opportunity won't fit into a safety deposit box, but you can live in it. Like, they took up the whole back of their business card for this, and I just don't get it, right? Like, I get it that you're saying, this is an important investment, but there are much better ways to say that. And the whole visualization here is just kind of funny. We will listen and then go to work. I mean, okay, what does that mean, right? Like, most of these slogans and slang are just terrible. Curiosity killed the cat. Real estate doesn't have to. And then this one's kind of funny. I will take you home. Like, that just creeps me out. Why would somebody put that on the back of their business card? I will take you home. Like, we're not picking somebody up at a club or a bar here, right? Like this, I mean, maybe that's what they use their toss card for. I'm not sure. But there's just not a whole lot of value in here. And again, if it's not something that you're super passionate about, or your mission or your purpose, I don't think it needs to be on your business card or anywhere in your brand.
Okay, so I'll let you pick ours apart, maybe, because and we're passionate about this in the Ben Kinney organization, and this is you said unless it's your mission. Our mission is delivering the dream of home ownership everywhere. That's I would call that our slogan, I guess, but it's our mission, right? And we're passionate about that. Like, we own Ben owns a bunch of real estate sales teams that do that every day, right? We did it 3,000 times last year. Like, we have brokerages that do that. We get up in our software world, like, we're trying to help more agents deliver the dream of home ownership to their own clients. Like, we get up every day, and that's why we come to work, is so more people can be homeowners. What do you think of that one?
I think just the way you presented that, and I've seen Ben's slogan all over the place, and in fact, I almost knew it verbatim because of how many times that I've seen it and how much your group lives that. I think it's amazing because it's your purpose. You said it's your mission and your purpose, and every day you wake up to achieve that. And all the things that you're doing in your life and in your businesses together, all the software companies is for that mission and that purpose. I love it. And it also connects with the people that may be potentially reading that. The dream of home ownership, right? Like, that's a big deal. You're connecting with that person. And the fact that you're trying to deliver that dream everywhere talks to your expansion teams, to your software companies, all those things that you have going on. That's a very valid purpose and mission, and I love it, and I think it should be on everything. So
you spend a lot of time with this, though, Ken. Like, I feel like your slogan's not just something you sit down today and you're like, what's my slogan? What's my mission for my, I mean, this is something that you develop almost, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and that was to my point a little bit earlier. I probably didn't make it super clear. You can't ask someone, what should my slogan be? It's got to be something that, through the course of business and maybe what you were dreaming when you got into real estate, like how you were going to help people or what you were going to do. Like, it kind of evolves with you. Our company's purpose and mission is to help small business and help real estate agents succeed. We didn't have that slogan or tagline or purpose day one. It was something over the years that we built, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, we're doing these branding things and they're fun, but at the end of the day, like, most businesses fail. Unfortunately, most real estate agents are not successful. Our goal is to help people succeed through better branding, right? And that took years to come up with. And it's so simple. I help small businesses succeed, like, so simple, but it took us years to come up with that. And that's what we wake up every day to do.
Love it.
Yeah, cool.
What's next?
So,
what's our next?
Next is just bad photography. We see it everywhere.
There's websites dedicated to this, by the way, like multiple websites. There's Instagram feeds, bad real estate agent photos, right? Like, this is a thing. It's a real thing.
It's legit. And the reality is like, there are many jobs that you have as a real estate agent, but actually, marketing properties and marketing yourself are your two most important jobs, right? And if you can't take a good photo, or you don't hire a good photographer to take those photos, you're really sinking your ship before anybody even gets a chance to, see what other services that you provide. And it kind of starts with your real estate agent photo. This is a real estate agent's photo, right?
No, it's not. Are you serious?
And he's packing heat. You're setting expectations of what it's like to work with this guy, right? And you're probably maybe getting some people saying, hey, I'd really like to work with this person, and some other people that are like, there's no way I would ever hire this person. And why would you put yourself in a position where you're creating that opportunity for people to not work with you. So this is legit. It's on a guy's business card. We certainly advised him against it, but you know, yeah, I don't have a whole lot of words for that. But next one, kind of the same deal. Same deal. So this is obviously taken with a phone in their home, but this is a real estate agent, right? And I don't think that that's necessarily the image that a homeowner wants of their agent, but this is what folks will do sometimes. And she's got a beautiful dress on. She's very well made up. She's a very beautiful woman. But what message is this saying on her business card?
Not the one that she wants to be portraying, I don't think.
I don't think so. Different kind of business there, I think. Whoa, sorry about that. The next one here, this one's kind of interesting. We have a company in Orlando called Appliance Direct, and there's this man, looks very similar to this, and he's like always jumping and doing like crazy things in his TV commercial. So there's an agent here that thought that it would be funny to like kind of mimic and replicate that. And I'm not quite sure how they took this picture. It was a while ago, telling by the phone on his belt there. But like this was his picture. And you know, unless you're playing soccer, I don't necessarily think that represents someone very well in their personal brand. I mean, kind of be a fun agent to hang out with, but you know, in their personal brand on their business cards. What we're looking for is a professional photo that's well lit. That's current or recent, right? If you're gonna put a photo on your business card and hand it to someone, you shouldn't look like that photo was taken 10 or 15 years ago, right? It should look like you now. And if your photo's that old that somebody has to do a double take when you hand them your business card, it's time to replace that. So we're looking for like a professional headshot, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be your whole body like some of those other folks there, but professional headshot. And what I'm looking for in helping folks integrate this photo into their branding and into their messaging, whether that's print or online, I'm looking for the top of the head. So this guy's photo here is good, like the head's not cut off, but he did get his shoulders cut off. So his left and right sleeve are missing. So what that forces me to do is keep this guy in a box on everything that we do, or we have to go in and create shoulders for him. So we have to go in and actually like make fake shoulders, which, you know, takes a whole lot of time to do that. So if you're working with a photographer getting your headshot, they try to get creative and, you know, they're wanting to crop and kind of use their artistic eye. Always ask them to make sure that the top of the head and both of your shoulders are in the photo. That way we can put you on any collateral, any material or anything that we need to, and not have to create these fake shoulders. So photography extends beyond, you know, bad real estate headshots. It also goes into your MLS photos, right? And we're talking about the legacy. We're talking about, you know, the impression that you leave behind. Your brand extends to what you put in the MLS and how other agents perceive you as an agent. And that may affect your negotiations with them. You know, if they see that you didn't put a whole lot of effort into that listing, what does that say about you as an agent, and how are they going to negotiate with you differently? There's a website called terriblerealestateagentphotos.com, and that's a fun place to go if you want to just look at just bad photos. So here's one here that just looks like, you know, it came out of, gosh, I can't think of the movie right now, like not Poltergeist, but the one of those like, you know, movies with ghosts and stuff in there. It just looks really, really bad. So it doesn't look good. This one was hysterical to me. I don't know what they're trying to sell, but it's there in the middle somewhere towards the back.
It's telling you the view of that cornfield or whatever.
Or that one tree. Like, I have no idea what that means. Or maybe they're trying to like show how close it is to the, I don't know, is that a radio tower or antenna over there? I'm not sure, but just kind of silly things, right? And you always want to make sure to step out of what you're doing and thinking, maybe show a couple folks and see if they get what you're trying to do, because I have no idea what that person was trying to do. This one tripped me up for a little bit because I didn't know what I was looking at until you like turn your head sideways. And unfortunately, I see most people walking around with their cell phones, whether it's iPhone or Android, and they're taking pictures with the phone up and down because that's how they hold it when they're dialing or they're typing an email. But most TV screens and most computer screens are not up and down, they're sideways, right? They're not portrait, but they're landscape. So when you're taking your photos, make sure that you take your photos in landscape mode so that you don't run into a situation like this. Basically what happens is this person uploaded the picture, but they didn't rotate it, right? So we want to make sure that you take the photo nicely and it gets rotated before you upload it. This one went to Georgia MLS. Next one, I have no words for this. It's curious. I think it needs a little bit of an explanation, but I love that you only get toilet paper on one side though. There's no toilet paper holder on the other. So your photos actually, everywhere you go, they're going to be a representation of you and your business and how well you work for your clients, how well you market their properties. And if your photos are questionable or your photos aren't of the highest quality, you will be turning off referrals. You will be turning off potential leads. You will be causing other agents to think twice or think differently about you in the transaction. And that's not something that you want to do. So if you want a solid brand, need to have really solid photos and images.
I mean, when you think about real estate listing photos, and today, like, we put a listing into the MLS and that thing is syndicated everywhere. And, you know, a well-priced property in a hot market, I mean, within 24 hours has had thousands and thousands of views on it, whether that be from Redfin or Zillow or Trulia or your own website or every other agent website out there. I mean, there's like, a bad photo can reverberate for a long ways, right? Like, you think about it, it's like you said, you've got other sellers who were thinking about listing with you because they were referred, who are going and looking at what you did on that last listing that you just put out. I mean, a lot of this stuff, you don't realize how far and wide it goes. And you don't realize what the potential blowback is from somebody seeing, you know, just some perplexing photos or even just photos that, you know, when stacked against other professional quality photos, like your average iPhone photos, they might not look like as bad as some of these ones you're showing, Ken, right? But when you stack them up against like a professional, right, against your competition, they might actually be really bad.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's, you know, a lot of times agents may be in a hurry to get a listing out there, or the seller might be in a hurry to hit a certain date, and you take those photos with your iPhone. They come a long way. But you can get those edited very inexpensively to where they don't look like they were shot with your iPhone. If you're not, you know, into that whole photo editing thing, there's some websites out there for a few bucks that would take that iPhone photo and make it look like something that you've never seen before. So I think that's a great point. And these photos do live on forever. Hopefully they're not bad enough to end up on this website or the Instagram that you mentioned, but they do live on forever. It's your legacy. So make sure that they're good. All right, number 4 we're gonna talk about is free email addresses. If you are running a real estate business, I suggest that you not use a Gmail account or an AOL account or a Hotmail account. You should use something that's your own domain name or your own brand. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I have a bunch of email addresses. But you know, my personal email address is kenmg77@gmail.com. You probably know either I'm 77 years old or maybe I was born in 77, right? Like that says something about you. They're like digging into, you know, what's going on in your email address there. I also have kenmg77@yahoo.com. I was branding myself back in, I don't know, whenever I did that, 91, 92. But I also have other email addresses that actually connect to other brands. So if I was a real estate agent at Keller Williams, for example, I might want to use kennyg@kw.com. Which would be better than using the Gmail or the Yahoo, right? But it's still not good. If I were to get an email from kennyg@kw.com, what would my website address be? Like if I wanted to go look at
kw.com, like that person's gone and left and off to see 180,000 other agents.
Yeah, and then now they're clicking on a property, inquiring about a property, and the lead goes to somebody else, right? So don't use any of these free email addresses that's provided by your brokerage if you can avoid it. If they require it, I understand. But if they don't, and you have the opportunity to brand yourself, put your domain name there. So I have kgranger@brandco.com. You instantly know, first of all, you don't know that I was born in 1977, but you also know that you can find out more about me. You could find me on brandco.com. So the free email addresses, they're junk. Yeah, you probably started with that. If it's on your business cards, I want you to try and flip that immediately. Make sure that you have a domain name. We'll talk about domain names in a little bit, but have a domain name and your email address to match it. All right, number 5 is alphabet soup, and we'll play a little bit of game here. You with me, Bob? If I give you some,
I'm with you.
All right, if I give you some initials here, I want you to try and tell me what that means. So
okay, well, I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I don't know. SRS, Senior Residential Specialist. I don't know.
That's actually correct, but
get out of here.
If you look at your steering wheel, it's also your supplemental restraint system for your airbag, right?
Right.
People don't necessarily know what SRS means. You put SRS on your business card and they're thinking, I don't know, you sell airbags? I'm not quite sure. How about CRS?
I mean, I think it's certified residential specialist, but I don't even know what that means, by the way, if that's right.
Yeah, but it's also can't remember stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many acronyms that are in the real estate business that people will put on their cards that just mean nothing to the end user. How about ADD?
My guess is not your guess, by the way. I don't know what this means in real estate, though. If this is a real estate one, I've never seen this one, or I don't know this one.
Well, you're actually like quite a bit more connected to the industry than most folks are, but it means nothing in real estate. It's just Americans for Donald Duck. But this one's good for parents. How about this one? You know what this is?
A piece of shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It also means parents over shoulder. So if you're a parent and you have kids that are like, maybe sending messages on their iPhone or whatever, and you happen to be creeping on them a little bit and you see them type POS, it usually means they are about to get into a conversation that they didn't want you to see. So if you see that POS, just know that maybe you should investigate a little bit further there. That's what your kids are trying to say. So I guess my point here is that most of these acronyms and most of these designations, or just alphabet soup as we call them, don't necessarily connect or mean anything to people on the other end. I can't tell you how many times, and there's been periods throughout the last 20 years where certifications become like a big rush, and then they kind of, it's like the tides, like they come and go, where people will just reprint business cards and reprint all their collateral because they got a new designation. And that might be okay if it's something that you're super connected and passionate with, back to your whole tagline. Like if you are luxurious and you get the luxury specialist designation, that might be worthwhile. But for the most part, there shouldn't be more than a designation after your name. And that's only if it's really important to you and connects with you. I've seen some people that just have 5 or 10 characters after their name of all these different designations they have out there. Those are great. I'm not saying that education is not important, but the reality is that very few people understand what those mean, and you're just creating conflict or confrontation.
Allison made a comment when we were doing the slogans earlier. She said, I would also say that if you have your mission statement on your business card, to make sure that you can quote it without looking, but also explain it to a potential client if they ask. I would say the same thing about alphabet soup, right? Like if I'm a CRS and I'm going to put that on my business card, I better be able to articulate to somebody why that's there, right? Why is that valuable to them? How did me putting this here, why does it help them, or how is that a part of who I am and what I do?
Absolutely, that's huge. And I think who said that? Allison. That's a great point. That you have to be able to not only come up with it and ooze from your pores, but you have to be able to explain it to people, and that's your slogan, and that's also these designations. And if it does not connect with your potential user or your potential customer, it could be a detractor, which would be the opposite, and we definitely don't want to have that. Cool. So alphabet soup, usually not necessary. If you're super connected to it, maybe a designation or two. That doesn't mean in your bio, when somebody gets super interested in you, that you can't talk about all those things and the education that you've got in real estate. I think that's great. But putting all of these comma, comma, comma after your name with all these acronyms, I don't think is a really good idea. We kind of started the conversation earlier about the visual representation of your brand. And I think a lot of people, when they get into real estate or they start to think about, the image or the identity of their business, they think real estate, right? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to want something really specific in real estate in their logo, right? So we see this. If you go to Google and just type in real estate logo, this is what you're going to see. And this roof line over your name, you're going to see that, if you're collecting cards at Family Reunion in that bucket, you're going to see this logo probably 6 or 7 times out of 10. You're going to see the same thing. And the whole idea here is to be a particular type of something and to mark indelibly, right? So if you're just a copycat or a Me Too brand or a Me Too logo, and you take your name and you just put this roof with the little 4 windows over your name, you're not separating yourself. You're not differentiating yourself. And quite honestly, I'm in this industry, so I'm a little bit biased. When I see that, I instantly think Fiverr. I instantly think that you spent $5 on your logo. And then I start to think, why would I want to list my most important investment with you when, you do a bad job of marketing yourself and you're not willing to spend on yourself? How are you going to be willing to spend on my property?
Show me some good examples.
Well, I think these, we can all look at these and see those pretty quickly. A good example is going to be something that represents you and the business that you're trying to be in, and whether that's going to be luxury, first-time home buyers. Maybe you live by the ocean, or you live in Washington, and the mountains are important. You want to connect to who your potential customers are in a very professional way. So this particular agent, Carrie Wolke, she's got a team, and we don't have a roof line over it, or a key, or a door. But you can see through all the other things that are going on in her brand, how it connects to her color palette and her logo. You can see these different pieces of collateral, whether that's Facebook or the business card, all connecting together. And you can do that without putting a roof or a key over it. Next example I have for you, this one got a little roofy in the logo. I'm not super excited about that, but it's also an A for her last name, so I'm kind of okay with it. But she sells properties at the beach. So she's got, the kind of the beach colors in there. It's very bright and colorful. She's a very bright and colorful agent, so you can kind of see in her outfit that she's wearing there. She's, got some personality coming through in the color. So we kind of incorporated that into her branding. So again, we're not, getting super literal with the logos and the presentations, but also if you look at everything that's going on in her business, that all clicks together. So you can see that consistency from, the website to the business cards, on mobile, how it looks on all the different devices. And then, that color palette works its way through everything as well.
You're using the word consistency. The word that keeps popping in my head is continuity, right? And the same word essentially, but it's like everything that we see in both of these last two examples, it just extends everywhere, right? It's like her Facebook looks the same as her website looks, as her business card looks, as her email signature looks, as like, I feel like any time I would come into contact with Carrie Wolke would be a very similar experience, which would just reinforce whatever I started to think about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that consistency or continuity is important for people too, because really that's what they're expecting from you as a real estate professional, that you're going to be consistent with them, and you should be. You should have processes in place so that your experience is the same at every point in the transaction. Everybody will experience the same thing, right? When you have consistency in your brand, you're sending messages out there that you have consistency in your process, and that's very, very important. It's subliminal. A lot of people don't think about it. But it conveys that if you've got your act together and you're paying attention to all of these things in your brand, you're going to pay attention to those things in the transaction too. And that's something that's really important and very subtly communicated through having consistency and continuity in your brand. All right, a little earlier we talked about email addresses, and we talked about domain names. I think it's really important that we go into what would potentially make a bad domain name and how you can convert that over into a good one. It's no secret that really good domain names are kind of hard to find, but that doesn't mean that there are not still good domain names out there. So don't settle just because you think that you can't find the domain name that you're looking for. So I want to show you just some domain names out there. And Bob, I don't know what your thoughts are on this first one here, DaytonaHomesForSale.net. What do you think about that?
I think the .net's a little challenging. Most people, even if they could remember Daytona Homes for Sale, there's a bunch of stuff in here. That number 4 makes it right. Because if I was to tell somebody like, hey, yeah, just head to my website, DaytonaHomesForSale.net, I'd have to be, but it's a 4, the number 4, like, feels like there's a lot of explaining that would have to happen there.
Yeah, way too much. Imagine that, conversation bumping shopping carts with somebody at the grocery store, and you're trying to get them to your website. You have all these asterisks on, driving somebody over to your website, and we want to make it super simple for them. So in this one, you clued in on the 2 big things, right? .net. If you can't get the .com, don't waste your money on the .net, right? You're only advertising for your competitor. So if somebody were to actually remember the number 4 part, they would get home and they'd type in .com. And if that was somebody else bought that domain name, it's probably your competitor. So don't do those things. And if you want to do something cute with the number 4, make sure you also have the correct spelling of it, like the number 4 and FOR. That way, regardless of what people type in, they can get to you. And that could be totally fine. But if you can't have one, don't have the other. Next one here, Daytona-beach-homes-for-sales. This is a real domain name, and they thought that they were doing a great job from an SEO perspective, and they're probably right. Like, it's helpful to have those words, those keywords in your domain name, but like to communicate to that someone, like imagine leaving a voicemail for them. Yeah, just email me, Ken at Daytona-beach-homes-4-sales.com. Not sale, but sales.com. Like they're never going to get that. You're never going to get the email. So you stay away from those types of things. If you're going to buy domain names for SEO purposes, it's possible that we would use them, but we wouldn't market them. They wouldn't be on your business cards, for example. What do you think about KenSellsDaytonaBeach.com?
I don't hate that one. I mean, I could easily tell it to somebody, I think. I don't know. I don't hate that one. I'd be interested why you might think that one's, not the best.
Yeah, so there's a big conversation to have here whether or not you should brand your name or you should brand your product, right? And sometimes your name is your product, right? Or should you brand the area that you work? And a lot of times, this is a big decision for people to make. Like a lot of folks, when we look at like some of the big players, Ben, for example, in real estate, it's Ben Kinney's team, right?
Yeah.
How many listing presentations do you think Ben goes on this year?
None. Well, I mean, he'll go on a few, but not like he used to.
The reality is that he's got a team that's going to do that, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of hard to sell the Ben Kinney team to somebody else. If Ben at some point says, I'm done with real estate, hey Bob, do you want to buy my team? A little bit hard to buy the Ben Kinney team if Ben Kinney's not there anymore. So Ken Sells Daytona Beach may or may not be, depending on what your vision is for your exit strategy and your growth strategy. It may be like if you're just like a chill Daytona Beach real estate agent and you're going to live there the rest of your life, and this is just fun, you love hooking people up with properties on the beach and and perpetuating that lifestyle, that could be an awesome domain name. If you're thinking, hey, I want to build this big massive team and I want to sell this team to my nephew when I'm done, then maybe that's not a good strategy for you. So there needs to be some thought on what's the growth plan look like and what's the exit strategy. Next one, KenGranger.realtor. .realtor came out probably 4 or 5 years ago. NAR was super excited about it. And the reality is a lot of people can't spell realtor, let alone say realtor. But then, again, they don't know that .com, right? So if I can't get KenGranger.com in addition to Ken Granger Realtor, it's possible that people will forget the realtor part and type the .com, or maybe they'll type KenGrangerRealtor.com and they just might not get to you. Next example, a lot of brokerages will give you what they call a subdomain. So in this case, you could have like KenGranger.kw.com, and agents use this all the time, but it shouldn't never be marketed because no one really understands why there's this extra dot in between the Ken Granger and the KW, right? So that's a real challenge there. You want to make sure that whatever domain name you purchase, number one, you own. In a scenario like this, if you ever left KW, like you're screwed because you lost your domain name, right? All your business cards that people have had over the last X number of years are now pointless because it doesn't have your domain name on them. But also, people are going to be really confused about what that means. They're going to think it's an email address sometimes. They're not going to really understand it's a website. So give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, don't make them think. Like, make it easy on them and purchase a domain name. And we see all the time where folks will use like their agent profile page at their brokerage. So, like a Berkshire Hathaway /agent/ your name. That's not really your website. And as soon as I click, the home button on there, I'm now browsing homes where the leads can go to everybody else and not to me. So you want to make sure that you purchase a domain name that's going to serve your purpose, that matches your vision for growth, that matches your visions for exit strategy, and also is very easy for people to remember.
That's a bit. I mean, that's a big one. And like you said, there's it's not like it's the Wild West and all these domain names are out there anymore. But there's definitely domains to be had.
Yep, absolutely. And Kevin mentioned there that Realtor does have a copyright on it. I think that's important to notice or to note. If you use the word Realtor, it can only be in conjunction with your name. So if I were a licensed agent and I was a member of the National Association of Realtors, I could put Ken Granger Realtor. I could not put Orlando Realtor or The Best Realtor. Or any of
if you go out and you claim a domain name of OrlandoRealtor.com, they might not catch you for a year or 2 or 3, but they will catch you eventually. The National Association of Realtors will come to you. We used to have this on Active Rain all the time. People would even just make their usernames like Orlando Realtor, and they would come and say, you can't, that's a trademark. You can be, like you said, Ken Granger Realtor, but you can't be Orlando Realtor because there's 1,000 Orlando Realtors. You're not the only one.
Right, and you don't want to be in that situation where you got away with it for a year and then all of a sudden they pull the plug on you. Now what are you going to do? So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind as you're building that brand. All right, so let's take a look at some email signatures. And this is one of those places where I wanted to use some real ones because these exist out in the world. Here's an example of someone that did the alphabet soup. So we've got Anna somebody with this alphabet soup. She at least explained what all of those things mean, which was nice. And then we just got all of these like contact and emails and all the other kind of stuff. It's just crazy. And the reality is like, what's the difference between a new multimedia site and searching for properties and learning about her? Like, this is horrible. You should have one place in your email signature for them to research you. You should have a single link to your website. It's totally fine. But you don't need to have one for properties and all these other things. You just need one link back to your website.
You love her slogan though, right? When you're committed,
man,
there's always a way.
This is awful. I should probably put that one back in the slogan section. This is terrible. So no, I don't like that one at all. Here's another one that's got like this big legal disclaimer on there, but you can see they've actually got like links over to their brokerage email address, right? And their brokerage website. There's no reason for you in your email signature to have your email address. Like, they know your email address because you just emailed them. There's no need to have your email address in the email of your email signature. So, obviously, if you need to have a disclaimer on there, I think that's totally fine. But, kind of think about how much garbage you have above that email or above that disclaimer in your email signature, so it's not quite as overwhelming.
I mean, so what we're talking here on that one, we're talking name, company name, phone number, and maybe a link to the best place they could go online to learn about you, right? I mean,
absolutely. That's it. Super simple. Super simple. And that, a lot of folks will use images to in their email signature. And I think that's a great idea. There was a period of time where some phones were not downloading the images automatically, so you would lose out on whatever you're trying to brand in that email. But when we go back to that one slide for Carrie Wilkie, you saw her email signature kind of matches that. This is a great opportunity to perpetuate that brand in the email signature, where they start to get that consistency or that continuity that we were talking about, where they can see like, okay, everything for Kevin is exactly the same, right? All right. So number 9, and this one's hard to kind of put into examples, but I think it's a huge mistake that real estate agents make, and that's that they try to be all things to all people. They try to have such a huge net that they end up being nothing to no one. And what I mean by that is if you are a new agent, you're probably going to drive, I don't know, all over town. Like in Orlando, for example, if you go from one corner of Orlando to the other, and the little cities around there, it's probably like an hour and 30-minute drive. And how often and how far are you going to do that? How far is your business going to go? And if you're working with first-time home buyers, you're probably not going to be capturing luxury homeowners for listings. So I think it's really important when you're thinking about your brand and what you want to leave behind in the minds of the people that you want to work with is first identifying who do you want to work with? And that could be questions like, where do they live? How far am I willing to drive? Like, not just today, but if my real estate business were to be successful in 2 years from now, am I willing to drive 90 minutes to show a property? Probably not. I mean, maybe in some markets you are, but think about really like, if I could build my ideal business, how far would I be willing to drive? What type of customers would I be working with? And when you build that brand and you start to set up some of the imagery and the logos and the domain names and all of those pieces that we talked about today, have those things in mind so that you're not trying to be all things to all people, that you're a specialist, and a specialist that is represented very well in your brand, a specialist that people will trust, and a specialist that people will want to work with. So I really caution everyone to stop trying to be all things to all people. In the early days, it's really easy to do that in the early days of your real estate career. But going forward and building a brand, try and think through who you really want to be working with and how far you're willing to go to make that a reality.
I think that's a thing where a lot of people think, I don't want to like pigeonhole myself into this one thing, right? Because what about all those other people? There's a lady in Seattle, her name's Courtney Cooper, and she over the last 10 years has become like the houseboat person in Seattle. Like, she sells all the houseboats, right? Yeah. Like the Sleepless in Seattle houseboats. Like, that's her deal. And she set out 10 years ago to like work this niche. And the thing that she would tell you with 10 years of experience, kind of looking back, is that did not limit her from selling condos to first-time home buyers or lakefront properties that weren't houseboats. It allowed her to lock up all that houseboat business, right? Because that's how she kind of built her brand. But it didn't prevent other people from wanting to work with her.
Right, right. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that. So they try and just cast this big net and they end up not having a good purpose or a good mission statement or good, crappy slogans because they're just trying to be all things to all people. So be the houseboat person that sells all kinds of condos and lakefront properties. That's what you're trying to build. So this wouldn't be like a branding or marketing webinar if we didn't throw a bonus one in there. This was number 9, number 10. SOS, just another acronym here, and that's shiny object syndrome. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about alphabet soup and the designations, but I can't tell you how many agents will buy the coolest, latest piece of technology or software, not know how to implement it into their business, and then that component of their brand completely fails, and it leaves a bad impression or a bad taste in their mouth, in their customer's mouth, because they didn't have a good experience with it. If you're buying software or a tool or those types of things to help you run your business, make sure that you leverage it and make sure that it plugs into every other component of your brand and you give somebody a good experience with that new tool. Texting is a big one, right? A lot of folks will integrate texting into their business, which I think is amazing. If you've not put texting into your business, you need to. But you also need to be very purposeful about that and make sure that it's on brand and it serves your customer and gives them a really good experience. Don't just buy a texting application and then not respond to the texts, right? And make sure that it integrates and talks to your customer the same way that you would talk to them face-to-face or in an email or those types of things. So avoid shiny object syndrome at all costs. And I know we're getting close to the end of our hour here, so I want to thank you for all your time here. And if I absolutely will leave some time for questions. A couple things. Earlier I said if you want to shoot me your business card, I'm happy to review those. If you want to have just a one-on-one branding consultation, if you go to brandco.com/Brivity, there's a little form there that you could fill out. There's no obligation. We just talk to you for a half an hour. You can pitch your slogans to us. We can talk about your purpose. We can look at your branding elements, your website, your email signatures, and just have some conversations about what's working and what you may want to change there. Or if you just want some of my other, when I see a crazy business card and I post it on Facebook, you can follow me on facebook.com/Kenneth Granger.
All right. Ken, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming and doing this. You have time for 1 or 2 questions here?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. I appreciate it. This was super fun.
I think this goes back to the business card discussion, but it's probably applicable for her brand across the board. She says, how many logos are too many? Like she's got her team logo, she's got her firm logo, she's got a few best of awards type logos. I mean, is one kind of the deal? Sometimes maybe you have to have 2 if like a state law or something, but what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, so there's definitely some compliance things that you want to check with your brokerage first to make sure that you're in compliance with both your state regulations and rules and your local boards. But really, I think that you really can only represent one brand, and the other things may be like adding credibility or in the alphabet soup scenario. So if you've got, I've seen agents that get this D Best award, and I forget where it's from, like Dallas or something, and every year they'll reprint new business cards because they won it 7 years in a row, and now they've got 7 logos along the bottom of the business card. I don't necessarily think that that's going to resonate with somebody who has no idea what the heck D Best is. So I would just basically look at your credentials, your credibilities, your logos, those types of things as, I have such a small amount of space on my business card. Is this going to serve a purpose of getting people to do the activity that I want them to do? Whether that's pick up the phone and call me or email me or go to my website. If it distracts from those 3 activities, I would say as few logos as possible.
All right, I got to run. I realized just now I've got a call here at 11 o'clock. Hey, you guys, listen, there's these 9 things, like some of these you could go and like start taking action on today, right? Like your email signature, you could tweak and fix today. Some of these things you might want to go and get a consultation with Ken or someone on their team there. So brandco.com/Brivity. They'll do a free consultation with you guys and kind of talk to you about what might be an approach that you could take. And I'm assuming, Ken, you maybe work with some of the elements they have, help them develop some of the elements they don't have. Is that kind of the approach you guys take?
Yeah, absolutely. Very rarely do we work with an agent from the beginning. Most of the time they're in business and they want to plug a hole in their ship, and we start there. So whether that's one of these mistakes or all of them, we can kind of meet you where you're at.
Awesome. All right, Ken, I appreciate it, man. We'll have you back here again before too long, I'm sure. You guys go out, kick butt the rest of your week here in real estate. On behalf of Ken and Mikey and some of the other folks behind the scenes that help us with these things, appreciate your guys' time today. My name's Bob Stewart. We'll talk to you guys later.